It used to be that a six-figure salary was like the gold standard, but nowadays that may not be enough to make ends meet in certain parts of the country.
I have more money anxiety almost now than I ever did in my 20s. I am on a hamster wheel and there's no question about it.
But I think what makes them feel not rich is we were told once you make six figures, all your problems will go away. You'll just have so much excess. And I think we know that narrative is not true anymore.
In 2025, the United States remains the world's largest economy. GDP increased, job market stabilized, and government reports still hail as a new era of prosperity. Yet, beneath that glamorous surface, a silent crisis is spreading, where even the rich are getting poorer. About 14% of American households earn more than $200,000 per year, but 62% of them are still in credit card debt. In Los Angeles, a person making $200,000 a year after taxes only has $140,000 left to pay rent, car, and food. In New York, thousands of high earners admit they are living exactly like the working class they once believed they had escaped. Earning multiple is no longer synonymous with rich. An American dream, concept that once symbolized freedom and prosperity, is now replaced by a more bitter phrase, hamster economy, where everyone has to run forever to just stand still. If even the people who have climbed to the top of the are sliding down, then perhaps the bottom of American society has become a place where everyone is falling back. Today's video will reveal the inside of that crisis, where financial distress is slowly turning into mental distress, and the line between middle class and poverty is disappearing right in America's most prosperous period. It's probably not difficult to understand why America's largest economy in the world is always in the group of countries with low happiness indexes. Because even high-income people, who were once considered symbols of success, now have to live in a state of constant insecurity, fearing that tomorrow they will still have enough money to pay electricity bills, health insurance, or school fees for children. According to statistics, more than half of Americans say they need at least $100,000 per year to feel financially stable. A number once seen as a symbol of middle-class success, where you can pay off your bills, go on vacation once a year, and still have some savings. But in the US today, even those earning above that level are struggling to get by month. 62% of the high-income group still have credit card debt, even though their income was once considered enough to live well. People call them Henrys, high earners, not rich yet. People who earn between $200,000 and $400,000 per year have six-figure payrolls but don't own real assets. They are the symbol of a new America, where money flows out as fast as it flows in. Between huge income and empty savings accounts, they get stuck in an invisible spiral called success. They live in apartments with $3,000, $4,000 in rent per month, eating food delivered to their door because has no time left to cook. A quick meal becomes the price of exhaustion, and free time, what was once a symbol of freedom, is now a luxury that can only be bought with debt. Analysts call this the paradox of high income, paradox of the medium rich. Earning doesn't make you feel rich, spending does. Earning a lot of money does not make them feel rich. Only spending money can temporarily help them forget the feeling of deprivation. But the more they spend, the more they owe. Americans' total credit card debt has now exceeded $1.13 trillion. High income is no longer a hedge against inflation, rising house prices, escalating tuition and health insurance costs, or the living standards that society imposes. When income increases without assets increasing, even the person with a six-figure income becomes a luxury debtor, travels to prove he's okay, shops to forget worries, and trades the feeling free with loss of financial freedom. That hallucination isn't just on the payroll or in the bank account, it's creeping into every corner of American life. In Los Angeles, a young couple used to cook their own dinner every night, now ordering food 3 times a day. Because time is also money. But the more they buy back their time, the more they feel like they are selling their lives cheap. In Texas, many people have turned garages into makeshift workrooms because of the insufficient cost of renting a private office. Weekend parties, symbol of connection and peace, is now replaced by Excel table, recalculating insurance and credit card debt, costs. This is no longer a housing or stock bubble like in 2008. What is breaking at the moment is faith in the American dream. Workers feel they have lost control of their finances. High-income people are caught up in the race to maintain their status. And society gradually loses the line between completeness and false illusions. A generation that once grew up with the promise of free, safe, own, is now living in America, where all 3 of those things have become luxuries. And perhaps the most bitter thing is when those who have achieved what their parents' generation once dreamed of still find themselves living in fear. Not afraid of poverty, but afraid that one day the light of success will turn off, revealing the empty darkness of a dream bribed with debt and anxiety. If you have ever seen a mouse running on a wheel, you will understand how millions of Americans feel today. They ran, not to move forward, but just to stand still. In the US economy of 2025, hard work is no longer a path to freedom, but a race without a destination. A smooth, shiny spin operated by fear. Fear of failure, fear of falling, fear of no longer being someone in society is valuing all values by income. Marie Incontreras' story is a typical example of that cycle. Once a performer at Carnegie Hall but earning only $15,000 USD a year, Marie stepped out of the art world to start a business in the field of marketing. She has great success. Company revenue reaches more than 1.4 million USD a year. Personal income is about 300,000, 400,000 USD. But despite living with that desirable number, she still feels insecure and exhausted.
Oh, I 100% feel like a Henry.
Most Henrys, high earners, not rich yet, are people under 40 years old, the first generation to build their own assets, are paying off student debt, paying off their first house in installments, raising young children, and have not yet reached the top. Career peak. They have strong cash flows, but real assets are fragile. Rich in cash, poor in assets, is the portrait of the generation living between 2 poles, making more than ever, but also more tiring than ever. The reason lies not in income, but in the spiral of expectations. As income increases, so do expectations. Many people choose to move to high standard of living areas like Manhattan because they think they can afford, and then realize they have just doubled their rent. It is lifestyle creep, disease of the times, where people spend more to deserve its statuses. When friends of the same class all eat at luxury restaurants, go on vacations in Europe, and wear branded clothes, the personal living standard is also pulled up. Your friend's lifestyle becomes your budget. Then comes emotional spending, spending money to compensate for exhaustion. These people don't shop out of need, but to reward themselves. An expensive dinner, a short vacation, or a designer item just to feel worthy. But then, the feeling of emptiness returned, and the vortex continued. They trade time for money, then use money to buy back. Time, but what they get in return is stress and exhaustion. High income does not help them accumulate, but only causes money to pass by each month like water flowing in their hands. One person once said, "People think just working hard is enough to be rich, but actually, the more you work, the more afraid you are of stopping." It's the hamster spin of the senior class, where they don't know what else they're running for, doing it to pay off debt, to keep the image, or just to not be left behind. Fatigue becomes a permanent state, and anxiety becomes a survival instinct. Many people admit that they worry more about money now than when they were poor. Because when they don't have anything, they can still dream. For now, they have all, except freedom. The upper middle class, once the pride of America, has now become a symbol of an economy running on exhaustion, working without stopping, consuming endlessly, and none of them feel like I won. In that society, the sound of hamster wheels still spinning evenly, people running non-stop just to feel themselves standing still. For decades, Americans were taught that just for six-figure would get rid of financial worries, achieve freedom, and live the life their parents dreamed of. Six numbers, six figures, was once the threshold of peace, of weekends, and of the complete American dream. But by 2025, that number seems to be just an outdated illusion. New surveys show that people earning $100,000 a year say they need up to $246,000 a year to feel financially comfortable. People with an income of $50,000 USD believe that they must have at least $157,000 USD to truly be stable. A naked paradox is at play. Everyone wants more, and no one feels enough. The feeling of enough becoming a mobile thing. Every time it touches it, it goes a little further back. Each time the salary is increased, the spending level also increases. Every time a goal is achieved, a new goal appears. They no longer know what they are after, safety, or just feel like they can still run in the invisible race called success. Part of this vicious circle stems from social comparison. When you live among people who earn $400,000, your income of $200,000 suddenly becomes small. As social media is filled with images of luxury vacations, beach houses, and lavish dinners, satisfaction is gradually replaced by a feeling of falling behind. Every time they scroll through a post, they no longer think, "I'm enough," but "I need more." It is in that excess that they begin to feel deprived. Lack of time, lack of peace, lack of meaning. The more they have, the more afraid they are of losing. The more successful they are, the more easily they become obsessed with failure. High income turns into a burden, not a reward. And perhaps the scariest thing is not that they are not rich enough, yet, but that they don't know when they will feel enough. In the midst of a country richer than ever, America gave birth to a generation that was not materially poor, but exhausted in its mind. In America today, as income increases, spending also bulges. Not because of real need, but because of the feeling "I deserve." That feeling may sound harmless at first. A luxurious dinner after a good pay period, a nicer apartment, a new car. But gradually, it became a spiral from which very few people escape: the lifestyle creep, silent disease of the age of abundance, where every step forward entailed a new chain of obligations. Lifestyle creep doesn't just appear in the wealthy class. It creeps in at every income level, from $50,000 USD to $500,000 USD a year. The mechanism is simple. Spending expands faster than savings. When you have more money, your brain assumes that you have safe, and therefore allows yourself to spend more. But at that moment, your standard live has been upgraded to, and the spiral begins. Many people admit that the first thing they spend more when their income increases is food placed out. Not because they're lazy, but because doesn't have time to cook. Time, what was once a symbol of freedom, is now also a priced item. Every bag, every meal, every vacation, gradually used to prove I'm fine, still moving forward. But from there, living standard turns into a consumer trap. Fixed costs, house, car, insurance, school, vacation, keeps silently going up, leaving even rich people choking. They can't go back to their old lifestyle, can't stop, and can't say, "is enough." This disease makes Americans poor in wealth, not because of lack of money, but because of lack of limits. In society where everything is possible, upgrade, bigger house, newer car, more successful friends, satisfaction becomes a luxury. People no longer buy what they need, but buy that matches their position. And each new item is not just a cost, but an endless commitment. Must earn more, work more, to continue to maintain its own image. The generation of parents used to cherish every dollar of savings for the future. And the current generation, despite earning many times more, lives in a cycle of spending and anxiety. They have achieved better life but are not sure whether it is still good for them or not. Because lifestyle creep not only consumes bank accounts, it also erodes the soul. And perhaps the most painful paradox of this century is this: Americans no longer have debt because of lack of money, but because they don't know when to stop. If Dream America used to be the promise that just by working hard, you can live well anywhere, then today it is the address where you come back to life that determines whether you are free or stuck. In Los Angeles, a person earning $200,000 a year, the figure once considered the top middle class, after taxes is only about $140,000. But a one-bedroom apartment here costs at least $3,000 USD a month, car costs $700 USD, insurance $200 USD, gasoline $200 USD. These fixed costs alone cost nearly $50,000 a year, not including food, entertainment, or any of the smallest incidents that can cause financial turmoil. And as every bill increases, the feeling of living gradually turns into the feeling of trying to survive. According to new research, to maintain a standard version of the American dream, including home, car, children, pets, save 20%, spend 30%. Americans need a minimum of $100,000 USD a year in every state. But 38 states currently require an income of over $140,000 a year to maintain that standard of living. Even the cheapest states like Mississippi, Arkansas, Kentucky still require over $110,000 USD, while the average income in these states only fluctuates around $71,000, $87,000 USD. In paradise places like California, Hawaii, Massachusetts, the level needed to be considered a standard middle class has exceeded $240,000 a year. This number is 3 times higher than the national median income, turning the six-figure that was once a symbol of prosperity into an admission ticket to live. And the irony is this: the richer one is, the poorer one feels. In California, you can live next to people who make millions of dollars a year, making your income of $200,000 suddenly become small. In New York, just a few blocks away from Midtown, you'll see that the line between rich and burdened is scarily thin. The same building, the 30th floor, is a successful startup entrepreneur. The 10th floor is a Henry couple struggling with credit card debt. The feeling of enough becomes something that cannot be measured in money, but in zip codes. In some states, $100,000 can still feed a family, and in big cities, it's just enough to pay the bill. And it's this disparity that creates the geography of anxiety, where each state is a different version of the same tragedy. People are running as fast as they can, just to keep themselves from falling behind. People used to believe that moving to a big city was a way to change lives. But now, the closer they get to the light, the more they realize the shadow of debt, and the longer the pressure grows. In an America divided by the cost of living, a dress is no longer a pride, but a reminder of its position in the chain of survival. Because in America of the moment, you don't need to lose your job to become poor. Sometimes, just choose the wrong place to live. In an escalating physical economy, America is witnessing another emotional crisis. When everything is expensive, from food to rent, Americans seem to look to another type of investment to temporarily forget reality: emotional spending. Experts call this emotional inflation. Inflation happens not only with price, but also with emotion. More than 25% of Americans admit they are doom spending money even though they know they are in a difficult financial situation. They shop not out of need, but out of fear, anxiety, and pressure, that makes spending money the only way to feel like you're still in control of something. Many people admit that every time they get a raise, they reward themselves with a vacation, a bag, or an expensive meal. But those self-rewards are not real rewards, but psychological traps, because that money should have been transferred to a savings or retirement fund. And just like that, they trade dopamine for debt, and then come back feeling empty after spending it. That void is what it feels like to be full. Something that modern society has stolen, then come back to sell them in the form of fashion, tech, or worthy vacations. Each time they buy, they receive a brief dopamine shot but when the dopamine drops, the anxiety increases. On social media, the images of success are exaggerated to the point of absurdity. Holiday in Italy, apartment overflowing with light, breakfast by the window overlooking the old town. For those struggling in the real economy, those images become distorted mirrors that reflect a sense of failure. Even though they are in a high-income group, they still feel like they are falling behind. Psychologists call this the dopamine economy where emotions are commercialized and spending becomes a tool to temporarily hide mental emptiness. One expert commented, "We are trying to buy back the feeling that society has made us lose, the feeling that we are good enough, successful enough, happy enough." And when every dollar becomes a temporary sedative, the scariest question is no longer how much money do we have left in, but how much emotion do we have left in that can actually be felt without buy with money. After all the spin of money, status, and debt, people are starting to realize that wealth is not in the numbers on the payroll, but in the peaceful feeling of no longer being afraid. Financial experts say that wealth is a feeling, not a figure. Being rich is not when you earn a lot, but when you no longer have to be rude because of bills, illness, or the future. In America in 2025, that sounds like luxury, but it is the only definition that can still save people from exhaustion. Because as more people realize, the race earns more, has no stops, and financial freedom is not a destination, but a way of life. The only way to get close to that, according to experts, is to know your own net worth. Net worth, total assets minus liabilities. However, most Americans do not track that number at all. They know their salary, but don't know where they really are. A financial advisor once said, "You can't know if you're rich or not, if you don't know where you stand." It is that obscurity that causes many people to fall into a state of psychological poverty, even though they are rich in income. They looked at the payroll, saw 6 numbers, but no peace of mind came along. The saying sounds simple, but it is the truest definition of financial freedom. Because the feeling of being rich doesn't start when the account has 6 numbers, but when you have a 6-month living reserve. When you know that whether you lose your job, get sick, or have a crisis, you can still stand. Because in the end, money can buy time, but not peace. And perhaps, in a world reeling between 6-figure payrolls and empty savings accounts, the richest are not those who have a lot, but those who find themselves enough. Perhaps never in modern history have Americans been so tired of their own wealth. Income numbers increase, but the sense of security decreases. The city's lights are still on, but below are millions of people living in anxiety, debt, and hallucinations of success. The generation that once believed that working hard was enough has now witnessed the collapse of that belief. They are not poor, but they no longer feel free. And when even the high-income class has to live waiting for each pay period, perhaps the problem lies not in the amount of money, but in the entire value system that America has built over the past half-century. Maybe the new Great Recession doesn't start with the stock market crash, but starts from within each person when they realize that everything they have been pursuing for so long no longer feels full. If wealth is no longer measured in money, then what should it be measured in? And if American dream was once the promise of freedom, then who else is brave enough today to live differently, to escape the cycle of illusion? If this story makes you think, click like, share for everyone who is stuck in this spiral, and subscribe to go deeper into the secrets behind American Dream. Because sometimes, only when we look directly at reality can we see the true value of freedom. This video was built for the purpose of analyzing, exploring, and inspiring social thinking, not representing any political, organizational, or personal point of view. All information, facts, and figures in the video are compiled from publicly available sources, financial reports, and independent research that is highly reliable at the time of implementation. The content presented is not intended to provide financial, investment, or legal advice, but only to help the audience better understand America's contemporary social, economic picture. Audiences are encouraged to self-study, verify, and form their own perspectives. Any quotes, characters, or stories that coincide with reality are illustrative and not intended to personalize anyone.